Good afternoon. It's Jason from Bohemia Apiary, and we are going to talk about what you do on step 2 after installing a package. We've had a couple videos on installing a package, how you do a step-through process when you are installing your bees, but we want to talk about releasing your queen or checking your queen a few days later. We've got a colony here that we've installed a package into about 5 days ago, and we want to check on it. Naturally, you should allow the colony to release the queen from the queen cage that you've installed between the frames naturally over a course of 4 or 5 days. If she hasn't been released yet, usually by that 5th day, you want to make sure that she's either got all the attendants still in there and they're almost about ready to release her, and they've eaten through the fondant, or if all those attendants are dead, or most of them are dead inside that queen cage, you want to go ahead and release her. There should be enough time to have her pheromones proliferate through the colony. Most packages that are built a few days before you receive them, so that queen has been with those bees for 7 days plus, which is a good amount of time for a queen's mated queen's pheromones to proliferate through the colony. You never want to release them too early when you have a package. Never do it the same day, mainly unless really the worker bees that are her attendants that are in the cage are already dead when you receive your package. So you want to make sure that you check that. So again, we're going to take a look at this colony. This was one that we installed 5 days ago, and see what we have. The first thing that I like to do when I look at my colonies is observe the activity from the package. Some of those bees may have gotten disoriented and drifted to a different colony. Just making sure you have volume of bees. We talk about bee volume a lot here at Bohemia Apiary with new beekeepers, because we really want them to understand that you manage your hive to the volume of bees. So let's take a look at what we have and what we need to do. Okay, the first thing that I observe when I pull the cover off is that we have still a good amount of bees from the package. Most of them are probably clustered here in the middle. It is a cooler morning, so we do have, a good amount of bees still in the colony. They didn't abscond, which is a good sign. They have a reason to stay behind. We also put some drawn comb in here on a few frames with even some honey resources, pollen resources to help keep them as well. Our queen cage, as you see, is right here. And so we're going to check on, see what we have once we get into the colony. I use screen inner covers for this purpose, as I talk about in many videos. I can observe the activity of the hive without disturbing them too much. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that cover off. And as you can see, when you look down in, there's a lot of bees. Now, one thing that the bees will do is they will start to draw a burr comb on the underside of your queen cage or between the frames. That's okay, just scrape it off, clean it up, and then push your frames back together at the end. But let's go ahead and take our queen out. So I'm going to loosen the frames where she's on, pulling the box, and observing if she's still in here. Do a quick shake, and if we look inside, we notice that the hole is actually open, okay? And there are a lot of worker bees in there. I don't see a queen bee in there because, oh, there she is still in there. She's still inside. You see, look quickly, there she is in the middle. Okay, so we're gonna release her into the colony. Set her to the side over here. One thing I wanna do is take a look at what my frames look like that they've been working on. Pull that outside frame out. There was some drawn comb that I stuck in there. I have my smoker ready. You always want to have your smoker ready in case they get a little ornery. And you give them a little bit of light smoke. You always do the smoke across the frames, not shooting it down in the frames. It just calms them down a little bit, masks that defense pheromone that potentially could make them aggressive. We're going to then take and move our frames around a little bit. Okay, we're going to pull that out. And that's a frame full of resources. They seem to be kind of taking care of that. This is a frame where the majority of the bees are on here. So we're going to pull that up. Use your tool to do that. You can see they're cleaning up the frames, storing some nectar and pollen. There's drone bees in here, which is great. That means there's drones in our apiary. If you don't know the difference between the two, that's a drone bee right there. Looks like a little bumblebee. And these are all worker bees. Drone bees are the boy bees, and about 90% of the colony are the worker bees, which are female. Going ahead and moving across, looking at what they're doing. Lots of bees on this frame, storing some nectar and pollen. One thing that I do is I always try to figure out the pattern which I want to have my frames as before I release my queen. If I have some drawn comb, if I have some undrawn comb, you like to put that between and checkerboard those frames so that you can establish all I'm doing there is kind of clearing some of them bees out so when I press the frames back, they don't. Let's go over here and grab the frame that are less drawn. And I'm going to drop that in the middle here. We'll draw that out. Oh, this is a heavy one, so lots of good nectar resources and honey resources on that. So we'll put that. This is a little bit lighter, empty drawn comb. We would want to put that more towards the middle, again, so that they work on. Okay, and then we're going to continue to tighten our frames across. We'll come back and put an inner feeder, an inner frame feeder in here. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just tighten the frames up. Now I've left some space for an inner feeder, but I want to talk about bee volume because it appears that some of this package is not here any longer. It might have drifted to another colony. But when I talk about bee volume, I talk about an 80-50, and we'll do another video on this to talk a bit in more detail. But when you look at this colony, they're working about 2, maybe 2.5 frames out of 9 frames, okay? That's not 80%, therefore you don't need another box. In fact, you don't even need to really have another frame in here if you don't want. Just because it's a 10 frame box does not mean you need to stick 10 frames in here. If the bees are only working 25 to 30% of the frames, they haven't moved out to these other frames. Therefore, they don't need to maintain extra empty frames with a lower bee volume. Let that queen to start to get laying and start to build brood before you add more frames in there. Unless you see a heavier colony starting to move out, the colony starts growing and it gets closer to being in more 80% of these frames, you definitely want to put frames in here to respect that bee space, because this bee space right here would create burr comb. But for this particular colony, they're good with the amount of frames I have in here. We tighten them up, we center them, and we're going to probably put a frame feeder in here anyway, but that's what I do until I do that. So again, I have my queen inside the cage. Let's go ahead and shake a little bit of the bees off slowly. She's still in there. Or did she squeeze out? She might have already squeezed out. Oh, there we go. So she came out on her own. And actually, what's interesting is I have it set on there. See what these bees are doing right here? These bees are fanning because the queen is in the colony. They're letting the other bees that are circling around and looking for where they need to go, that this colony is now queen right, the queen is here, and we don't need to worry about moving or swarming somewhere else. So let's go ahead and take and release the rest of these bees out of here. If the queen was in here, I would take my hive tool and just slide it across the top pop it open like that, and then dump your bees in. Or if it was her queen, I'd let it on the side like that and let her climb out. Okay? Now, we have a queen in here because they're fanning, but just to see if she made it down in here, I'm curious. So I'm going to make some space, grab the frame that they're fanning on, and look for our queen. Okay, she doesn't appear to be on that one. My guess is that she's on this heavier one with more bees. So let's go ahead and pull that out and look for our queen. Don't see her on that frame. And there are definitely a lot less bees than I would like in this colony. So I might add a frame of capped brood just to make sure I bolster their numbers. She's an elusive queen. I'm just not spotting her. It's a heavier frame. Lots of resources on it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close up this colony. I did not spot the queen, but I'm okay with that because I did see her in the cage. And when I set the cage on top, she likely crawled out. So I'm okay with that. We're going to tighten up your frames. Center them up. Okay. And let's put it back together. So that's what we do here when we're on the step 2 of installing a package. Again, we're looking for bee volume. One thing I've noted in here is that we don't have a lot of bee volume, so I'm going to grab a frame of capped brood from another colony. You can shake the bees off. There's enough bees in here to take care of that single frame of brood. And I'll put that frame of brood right here in the center, which will give me my 10 frames if I wanted to, or I could replace it with, put the frame in the back in the other hive. So that's what we'll do to bolster the volume of this colony. You may need to do that if you're just a starting beekeeper and you don't have that. Then naturally you need to feed and hope that your mated queen will start to lay quickly, because it's going to be 21 days before new bees emerge. And we want to make sure that you have enough bees to continue to maintain the colony. If it looks like it's dwindling too fast and she's not getting enough brood laid and something's occurring there, then naturally you need to contact your local beekeepers that are around you, or maybe the person you bought your package from, and see if maybe they can get you a frame of capped brood, because that is the risk you have of packages, which is drifting bees and just bee volume in general, making sure you have enough bees to keep that colony going and get it started. The foundation is fine, but drawn comb is better. We do have a mated queen in here, so she should immediately today or tomorrow start laying, and she can lay in the spring anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 eggs in the spring. So she'll lay, 1,500 to 2,000 bees every day, which will build your numbers up pretty quick. We have a nectar flow here on the eastern shore of Maryland. They have all the pollen resources and nectar resources they need now to do what they need to do. It's just about managing your colony for bee volume and for making sure that you have a queen right and she's laying. So we'll come back on this on a step 3 and doing a normal inspection on the colony, making sure that there is capped brood, or there is eggs and larvae. As you can see that there's a queen laying, and try to locate our queen as well. So that's what we'll do. But appreciate everybody watching. This is what we do here on the Bohemia apiary, is try to teach what we know, or just share what we know. It's really not a prescription for anyone who's beekeeping. It's really how we manage our hives. Everybody does it different based on your region, your bees. I'd observe your bees and then take lots of information and input in from other beekeepers in your area, your bee clubs, to help try to guide you as you start beekeeping or continue to grow your apiary. But here on the eastern shore of Maryland, we always say beekeeping is definitely more than a hobby. It's an obsession. Thanks for watching, everyone.